This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but we'll discuss in some time. I wrote some kind of questions. Just
Okay, sure, no issues. Okay, so then let me start about this like today's the concepts which we have. Then if you feel at any time, so that's I'm okay with that to clarify those questions. Which you have. Is it? Are you able to see the screen?
yes.
Good. Yeah, so if you try to recollect what we had it in the last section, just like 2 minutes, and we were understanding this like one of that point, like what is exactly the CAE and the CD, that is a continuous integration and continuous delivery activities. To understand this continuous integration, continuous delivery activities, first we are trying to understand old methodologies like waterfall approaches, and from that waterfall approach, like what are the disadvantages we have, thus the team's coordination point of view or the communications point of view, and as well as client interactions with the team's point of view. Yes, we have some disadvantages from the old approaches, but from that, like to make it the more success rate of that the process, to overcome those the communication gaps between requirements teams and developers and testers, yes, which we have thus the come up the process, that is agile process. But agile which is helping that like to have the more communications between the requirements developers and testers, but the more stress on this the release process, because it is having the sprint approaches and less durations of this the release process. So that's making that like as having the faster releases, but in that fast releases, like different teams are involving that, like a developers, the testing team and operation teams. But all these teams coordination point of view, like we have some communication gaps in the process release process. Those the communication gaps, to overcome that, DevOps is the methodology which has come into the market, which is helping us to have this automated the process from the developer to this production environment. And in that process, like we have this different tools and the different yes, like yeah, the different tools which are helping us to define the continuous activities. But what are those continuous activities which we are concluding? Like a continuous integration activities, like the developers, once the source code is ready, yes, they need to perform that integrating with that other developers and the code quality analysis, and as well as they need to verify this that's a code the unit test cases which they have implemented and they need to make sure that they have successfully integrated with that other developers, that means repositories. Yeah, so there are like some continuous integration activities is the challenge from the developers point of view. Then the testing team point of view, like the continuous the test cases, whatever it is planned for each environment, so they need to make sure that each release process they have executed all are successfully, and they need to yeah, make sure it all are the well good. There is a the continuous testing point of view from the testing team, and as well as operation teams point of view, like the release, like taking the change and deploying to that the planned environment, that is like a staging environment or UAT or the production. So what are like environment which they have planned it, they need to perform the continuous deliveries of the deployments, and as well as continuous monitoring activities. Yeah, so there are like activities which are expecting for that entire application point of view. But in that process, like which are expecting some communication gaps, those communication gaps, to overcome that, DevOps has come into the picture. Yes, this was conclusion as a continuous integration and continuous deliveries. And to fulfill this continuous integration, continuous deliveries, yes, we have this different tools which are helping us in the process. Like that's which are trying to understand the build tools and repository tools, like a repository point of view, source code repositories, and as well as artifact repositories and deployment servers, which we should know, and as well as we have like a container based applications. Those are like the Dockers or the Kubernetes or the Docker composers. Yeah, so with this with this approach, like the current infra which is changing to that, the virtualization platforms, so into that not infra level virtualization, and it is changing to that platform level virtualization with this Docker and Kubernetes, which are helping this in the market. Yeah, so there are like the different tools are helping us in the process with the cloud platforms, and yes, continuous integration servers, so which are helping like to integrate it all this. Yes, that tools we were concluding that in the last section. And then we started about this understanding. So like we need to have the machines to launch it, but what are the solution that we have this to launch the virtual machine is yeah, we have already market in that virtualization softwares, but not only these virtualization, I mean virtualization softwares which are helping to launch the virtual machines, but those are like manually which are helping. But like to automate it, the launching this virtual machines also, we have the some tools from the DevOps solution, that is a Vagrant. So Vagrant, which helps like to launch that the virtual machines with automation scripts. That means just to define this one script and start that virtual machine and use that. Yeah, so there are like the which we started understanding the Vagrant. So like that required softwares and downloading and installing and launching the virtual machine with the Vagrant file. And yes, once that is launched, then we're understanding so how to start it, stop it, halt it, destroy it. So those commands from the Vagrant. Yeah, once this Vagrant is done, then we started understanding this the Java point of view. Yes, like as before going to work with this the ci process, we need to have this application at least a build process point of view, some technologies on that application. So for that, like Java has been I mean Java, which we are trying to understand it, Java keywords, and like the source, what is that binary files, where the binary files which will be managed, where the source files which will be managed, like src directories and output directories, that is a targeted directories. And the Java point of view, this main binary files which you are expecting, that is like a .jar files or the .var files or .er files, like that is one source code of the Java is ready. The source code, how do we deploy into the servers, and what is the structure of that application? So that's point of view to understand it. Yes, we are understanding types of application from Java. Then we started understanding like, but to convert the source code into these binary file formats of the Java application or any technology, that is the processes. One source code is available, and source code if you would like to host it on the server. So what is the format that is required? The format understanding, that is like WAR files or the jar files conversion. To convert that, the build tools are helping that. But what is the build tool that is supporting for the Java, that is which we started the Maven, which helps like to take the source code, the compilation source code, compilation code, which can be converted into that. I mean, which we can run it about the unit test cases of the source code, and then which can be performed as packaging, archiving, and after that, like yes, archive files like a .var files or the jar files on the basis of the type of application, and we can take it and we can distribute that application to the remote servers or like a repositories. Yeah, so there was concepts which we had it in this the last, and I hope so. Like we are doing this. I mean, the installing, I hope so. Like we have done installing the Maven also. Yeah, so installation of this Maven also, we were doing that like, I mean, first installing the Java using m install, using the package manager, like installing about the Java. And after the Java is installed, like we're verifying this Java, how do we check it, this Java hyphen version? And then like Maven, we were installing, but Maven is the tarball which is distributed for the Linux based distributions, that tarball downloading using wget URL, and then like extracting, and after extracting that's a Maven adding to the path variable, that is as to locate that all the binaries, the Maven relate the binary we need to add to the path variable. Yeah, so there are like a point that we had it in the last section until to that. And today, let me talk with us the what is the agenda that we are going to look at is. Yes, what is the agenda we are going to look at about this is the first like a Maven point of view. So the build commands we are going to learn it. So once the source code is available, so what are the commands we use it to perform the build activities? But in this the build activities, like we have the different activities like unit test cases, executions. If you need that only unit test cases, how do you execute it? Or if you like to distribute that application to the some in the packing point of view, like what are the commands? Distribution to the local repository point of view, what are the commands? Distributing that application to the remote repository, what are the commands? Yes, some build commands we are going to look at that. Some points. This is one section from the Maven, and another section is distribution. Yeah, distributing that the packaged application to the remote repository. So which we are going to use it here. The nexus is that the remote repository we are going to talk it here. Yeah, so that's one point. From Maven, there are the two important sections we are going to look at. So once the source code is available, how to build it? That means like a test cases execution point of view, or like a packaging point of view, or distribution point of view. So how do you work with that? That's one point. Build commands and distributing the package to the remote repository. Yes, how do we integrate the Maven with the remote repositories? So once artifact is ready, how do we upload that artifact to that remote repositories using the Maven? Yeah, there are the two main sections we are going to look at from the Maven. Then as a deployment point of view, we should know this one of that the server. Yes, we are going to talk it that the app server. So from that app server, there is a Tomcat. We are going to take it. Yes, we look at about this, the Tomcat. How do we use it and how do you work with this, the Tomcat server? Then once this the Maven app server is ready, then we look at about it somewhat Vagrant, the multi node machines. So how do we launch it with Vagrant? So this one a small concept is available. That's we look at about it. Then we are going to understand that Ansible, the configuration management tool. So configuration management tool. So this one we are going to look at about it. Yes, so that's the main agenda. So for today. And then tomorrow, what is the plan that we have this is? Yes, we look at about the Jenkins, like integrating with all these servers and the tools. And the once the Jenkins is ready with a complete CI/CD process, how do we use it? The Jenkins to define it. Then we'll come back like the Docker Compose, and Kubernetes, and then like which are going to look at that Nagios. Yeah, so there are like the main tools which we are going to look at about this one by one, and this is by end of tomorrow. So we are expecting until to the Jenkins to complete it, and next weekend one day that is required. So where we look at about this Docker and this Kubernetes point of view. Yeah, this is the plan. And do you need that any priority of these tools which you have this in your mind? Please let me know. Then as per that, I can change it about it. So is it okay to continue with this tools approach, or like or which one do you want to start, or do you have any practice like knowing about it today or tomorrow as a high practice?
This is fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like let me check it that's virtual machine. So there's the Maven status, whatever we were doing this in the last class. Yeah, so like we were doing this in the last section, so like Java installation. So let me check if the Java is there in this host. Yes, so that's okay. We were doing in the last section, and then let me check it that Maven also. So we have installed that the Maven. Yeah, so in this workspace, yeah, this is a Maven 3 directory we were doing, and we were adding this the path variable about the Maven also. And if you just verify this MEN version, yes, we are able to run it, but Maven version command, so MEN hyphen version. Yes, like the Maven, yes, that is available 3.6.2, and in this location we have installed, and the Maven is running on the Java. So this is like Java version which I have installed, and yes, the OpenJDK, and this Java is running on this Linux. So that is OS name is the Linux version which is having 3.10. And architecture which we have the same AMD64 and family is Unix. Yeah, so that's about like the last section which we had it now. So before starting about it, how do we use this Maven? Let me talk it some concepts from the Maven. Then we'll come back as the build process point of view. Once source code is available, what are the main activities we are expecting? Those activities to perform that. So what are the main commands that is supporting from Maven? The commands. So to understand those points, so let me.
So if we have to use Maven, looks like for Windows operating system or Linux, whatever, uh, Java is mandatory, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. So
Okay.
Maven is the software, and that's Maven software implemented. That's Maven software is implemented using Java. And if you'd like to run this, the Maven, the Java is mandatory on that node.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, so whether you are going to work with this, the Maven on Windows or the Linux or any platform. So on that platform, so first you need to have this the Java, and when Java is done, then you can install this Maven and you can use the Maven. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Maven point of view, like I mean, the Maven to understand the first, like as a build process, we'll try to understand. In the build process, what we are expecting is, yeah, once the source code is available, the source code has to be compiled first. So the first, I mean, they're all what we can call it as phases. So phases of, I mean, there is a converting the source code into that. Like a binary file format or output file format, we call it as phases. But what is the first phase which you are expecting once the source code is ready is, I mean, that's just I'm representing the phases. But what are the first phase which you are expecting is the compile phase. So which is perform that like a Java compiler which uses and .java files which converts into that .class files. So here like which you are expecting is .java files which will be converted into .class files. Yeah, the compile phase. And once compile is done, that means all the like a compilation of the program is good. Then what is the next phase which you are expecting in the process is if the developer, if he's having this any the test classes he has implemented, then the test classes also required to compile it. Yeah, so that is the test classes compilation. So as the developer point of view, the total two types of those programs. One is source files, which has implemented an actual functionality, and the functionality whatever he has implemented, so he has to run it his own test cases. That's we can say that unit test cases. Yes, this compilation and unit test classes compilation should be done one after another one. Yeah, the first these classes should be compiled, and once the source, there are like which you can say source classes. So once the source classes have been compiled, and then the next phase in the build process which you are expecting is unit test classes also required to compile it. This is also like a .java files converting into .class files. Yeah, once this is done, the next phase, so unit test cases if you have, and once compilation has been done, those unit test cases required to execute it. So we're expecting this like before, yes, packing and before like deploying that application as those binary files to the server. So we need to make sure that what are the test classes which are implemented by the developers. That means the before deploying that, there are which you can call that is pre-deployment test cases. So these pre-deployment test cases required to it has to be, yeah, these unit test classes should be executed, and we need to have the success, all are compiled successfully and all are executed successfully. Then only we need to promote to that packaging model. Yeah, so the first is source classes compilation and unit test classes compilation, and then executing that all the test cases. If all the test cases are good, then promote to this next phase. So then which you are expecting is that is packaging. But packaging that application which you are saying as either .var file or .jar file creation or .er file creation. There are like binary files. So that means like what are the source classes which are compiled and which are converted .class files, and all these .class files that will be verified in these phases. So that is unit test cases, execution, compilation phases. And once all these .classes files functionality is good and everything is good, then we will pack it. That is if it is the web application var file, if it is the Java application jar file, if it is enterprise application ER file, on the base of the type of application we need to package it. Yes, once this packing is done, the next phase which we are expecting is, yes, I mean here that packaging point of view, like which we need to understand one more concept. The so here the directory structure, if you observe that, so during this phase source classes compilation, so it is going to pick up that all the files which are available in project home directory, and in that home directory src folder it is going to take it. That means, so whenever the Maven is running all these phases, so during that compile phase, in that compile phase what it is going to do that in that project, like the developers what of the project home directory which they have given, that in that project home directory it is going to find it all the files which are available in src directory. So within that src, and we have like Java folder. So in this folder, what are all the Java files, .java files are available. All the Java files it is going to pick up that, and it is going to convert into .class files. So that is in source classes compilation, compile phase. But during unit test cases compilation, but where that unit test cases are available, how the Maven is going to find it, where that unit test cases are located is, so Java developer, what are all the classes has implemented? In the project home directory src test folder, he uses that. In that project home directory src test folder, what all the classes are available, all the classes that will be taken, and those classes which will be compiled during this phase. So how the Maven is going to identify this is, developer he has to follow the standards as per the Maven whenever he is implementing the programs. What are the standards he has to follow is, so what are the source classes he is implementing, all the source classes required to keep this in src Java folder. So during compilation phase, Maven automatically picking up that all these source classes. So in the proactive home directory src java, what all the files are available, all the files it is going to assume as a source files. And during compilation of the test classes or test cases, so that is it is going to pick up that all the .java files which are available in the proactive home directory src test folder. Yeah, so this is like a standard directories of the Maven project. So like anyone, the Java developers or the Java projects, if you find it, and if they are using this, the Maven build tool for the Java project is nothing but these are all standard directory structure. So if you just open this the project, in the project src folder, you will be having the Java and the test Java, which contains all the source files of the programs, and a test directory which contains all the unit test cases, or if they have this any integration test cases, all that like unit or integration test cases which will be placed in these directories. Yeah, so that's about understanding. And in these unit test cases, yes, it is going to pick up that all the classes which are compiled here. So it is going to take it and it is going to execute it, those test cases in this phase, like unit test classes execution phase. And fourth phase, what it does, which you are expecting is, so during the packaging option, so now all the .class files, so whatever it is available. And one more point what we can understand is, so once whenever it is finding about this the compilation point of view, all the .java files, it is going to pick up from the src java, and once compilation is done and it is generating .class files, where this .class files it is placing this, that is one more point if you try to understand it. This means this is the output directory. So once so src java, what are the .java files are available, it is going to take it and it is going to perform the compilation. And once compilation is done and it is generating the .class files, but where the .class files which will be stored or which will be kept it in the project, yes, that's purpose it is going to take it that output directory as target. In the target folder, it is going to manage it one classes folder. So this is that input directory in this phase. So during compilation phase, so from which files it is going to taking into those like compilation is in the proactive home directory src java, what all the files are available, all the files which will be taken and which will be compiled. And compiled classes where it is going to manage it is that output directory which we have the specific to the Maven is, that is a target folder. In that target folder classes directory it uses that. Yes, that is like a output directory. This is output directory and this is the input directory. Like that, test cases point of view, it is going to pick up that all the classes which are available in this src test directory during test compilation phase. But where it is going to manage it, all these output files of this test cases is, that means all the .class files of that, where it is going to manage it is, that is in also, that is also in the output directory, the target folder, but in that target test classes. Yeah, so each phase, if you just observe that, it is taking the input to this phase from this directory, and it is going to write to this directory output like this. So here input is this directory and this is the output of this directory. And unit test cases execution, yes, execution is the result of it. It stores that how many test cases it has been executed and how many test cases have been passed or how many test cases are failed. That complete report. So what it is going to do this is, it is going to write to that, so one of the directory in the proactive home directory, the same target folder. There are like output Maven, whatever the output which is generating, all this it is going to write to that target folder of the proactive home directory. But in that target, what is the directory, it is going to update it all. There are all points are required, because whenever we are going to work with the Jenkins and we are going to define all these phases which are required, and we need to publish that the unit test cases result report. But where that unit test case result report is stored by the Maven, that is important to us. So that is, but where, I mean, where it is storing this, once the test cases have been executed and how many test cases are successful or how many successful are the failed, that complete result report, it is writing into that XML files, and where all these XML files are stored is, that is surefire report is one directory. In that directory, it is going to keep that all the XML files. This is like, which we can say that the report of unit test cases, but where it is storing this report of that unit test cases, this is, and in which file formats it is storing is .xml files. Yeah, so from this phase, like I mean, executing that in this phase of this, the Maven unit test cases execution time. So what that output we are expecting from that phase is, that is in the project home directory target folder surefire report, it stores everything in XML file format. Yes, that is. So if you just observe that, yes, compilation, taking that input and generating output by the Maven. Unit test cases is taking that input from this location and generating output. And unit test cases is taking, I mean, what are like test cases which are compiled, all the test cases which will be taken and that will be evaluated and which will be written to that .xml files in this directory. Next, once all these are all good, then what the Maven is helping for us is, as a build tool point of view, it helps as a packaging model as well as. So packaging model, if you try to understand, we have this .var files, .jar files, or .er files. But a .var, .jar, .er, if you try to understand it, I mean, that is in application specific point of view, we'll define it. So do you want to expect that the packaging as a var file or the packaging as jar file or er file? That's we need to define in the build file, and on the base of this, the build file which are defined, it is going to generate this archive files. But where all these archive files, it is going to write that. This is output generating, right? So it is going to read it all the .class files and all the supported files, like if it is a web application, HTML files, JavaScript files, or cascading style sheets, or like what are the resources, web resources that we have, and configuration files of that application, everything it takes, and it is going to packing in this structure. But packaged file, in which directory it is going to update it by the Maven. So packaging file, so it is going to write to that in the project home directory, in the target folder. They're all like a target is that important output directory, that is important for us. And so input files, which is implemented by developers. And but we are expecting in the CI/CD process, the outputs, once the build is performed, those outputs, sometimes we need to distribute it, or sometimes we need to publish it, sometimes we need to share those distribution to other the resources point of view, that is which you can set distributions. Yeah, so that is important for us. Output directories are the important as a CI/CD build process point of view. Yeah, so where it is going to store that by the Maven, all this archive files is, that is in target folder, and whatever the file name we have, that is the name of the file, and dot var file or the jar file or er file. So where it is storing this all the packaged file is, that is into that target folder. In the target folder home directory itself, it kept that, I mean, it is going to keep that like the var file or the jar file or the er file on the base of which you have instructed to the Maven. Yeah, so total, like so far 4 phases we are trying to understand, and these 4 phases have been completed. But what next? Do we have do you have any other kind of the requirement which we can take it from that Maven to distribute this application to other systems or other users or other projects? Yes. So once this packaged file is ready, but this packaged file, that is that is archive file. Archive file is sometimes it is required within the same build server machine. That means within the same node, this var file is required to share it to that other modules which are running this on the same build server. So the dependencies is next approach, or the next requirement what we are expecting is, once this archive files are ready. Archive files, either you need to take it this one into a server for deployments, or you need to take this file into storing into that remote repositories. The requirements next, like let me write it this requirements here. Once this var file is ready or artifact is ready, yeah, Bharat, any queries?
Yeah. Target is a folder where all the source code or whatever the code developed by the developer, everything will be saved in that target folder, right?
Yeah, yes, correct. Yeah, target is the folder, and actually developers point of view, src is the main folder.
Okay.
There's all the Java files and all the test classes and all the web resources. That's they keep it in the source folder. But what the Maven will do this is, so like whenever we are using the Maven to perform the build process, it takes that from the source folder, which we have the Java files in this phase, and it is going to compile it. And compiled files, it is going to make it into output folder. So it is going to keep this in the output folder. But what is that output folder which is having this is target. Target is the output folder here.
Okay.
But in this target, again, we'll be having the subdirectories. But what are the subdirectories is? So the classes is the subdirectory. The Maven is going to keep it all like the source files which are compiled. All the compiled files which is going to keep it in the target classes folder is the subdirectory. And another subdirectory which you are expecting is test classes. So this contains all the test cases related the compiled classes. So that is going to be available as an output folder in target folder. And this like yeah. So the test cases which are executed result, it has to generate it. That result which is storing this in target folder. Surefire reports is the directory. So in this directory, it is storing this all XML files. We'll see this practically also. These are all which are coming to that. And as
Okay.
well as, so yeah, once all this done, so it is going to generate that archive file, and archive file that is going to keep this in target folder. Yeah, so there are like a target is the folder which is available in the project home directory. It is going to manage it, classes, test classes, and surefire report. This is unit test cases result report, and archive file of that application that is in the target folder. Yes, they're all like which is output directories.
Okay. So once the code is ready
Yeah.
and once everything is in zip format, once everything is saved, so that will be having multiple files inside that, right?
Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct. Yes.
For the execution. So if
Yeah.
that multiple files has .var, .jar, or
Yeah.
.class file, whatever the file, all the files extension will be accepted.
Yes. Correct. And it is going to manage this in the target folder.
Okay.
Yeah, I will show this. The practically, then you will get the some more idea of that.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
But this is as a reference point of view. Once a source code is available, what are the main phases that is available from the Maven? So that's where understanding. But I'll show that like all these options. So whenever we are running the Maven with we are having some each phase to complete it some commands. So whenever you run those commands, so it is going to perform each activity. Yeah, so we have, let me talk with us 5 to 10 minutes more, then about that theoretical on this. Then I'll come back to show this like how it is going to work in the Maven. Yeah. Yeah, so like here, once this, the var file or archive file is ready, and these archive files I need to, so what we need to do is we need to, share it to this to, we need to deploy it to servers, or maybe that's archive file, that is a WAR file, we need to store it in this remote repository, that is artifact repository, or maybe we need to distribute that artifact to that other modules which we have this in the same machine. Yes, so like what we can say this here, this option is artifact distribution. Artifact distribution is in the sense like this is the artifact which we can call it, and once the package is that all these resources as a .var file or the .jar file or the .er file, and this file you need to distribute it, this artifact distribution. But what are those like requirements which will be having that? So once artifact is ready, so this artifact you need to distribute to on the same build server or the machine. So distributing artifact distribution on the same build server machine for other modules purpose. Other module purpose in the sense like suppose you have created this WAR file is web tire, but this web tire is required backend tire as well as. But backend tire we have like another module which is running in the same system, but thus backend module it is having the dependence on this WAR file. But you need to distribute this WAR file to that other module which is running on the same machine. But how do we distribute once this, what we are saying about it, once package is done, the packaged file it is going to keep this in the target folder only in that project specific. But this module, whatever we have generated, the front tire one, you need to distribute to the backend tire, and the backend tire is available in another the folder or in another project home directory. But how do we distribute this one is like on the same build server machine for other modules purpose we need to distribute it. So what is that option we have is local repository, we'll call it. So once artifact is ready, artifact which will be so placing this in the target folder, but this target folder, if you have this artifact, that is only available for this project, but you cannot use it for other projects. But the same artifact is required for other module in the same machine, then how do we distribute it to those other modules which are running on the same machine is, what do we call that approach is, you need to store this WAR file into local repository. So as we are saying about it, what is the repository is, like a repository is like storage, but you are storing about your artifacts. So artifact like WAR file or the jar file, ER file of that application, you need to store it in one of the repository. But what are the possible repositories are available is, one is local repositories which will be used on the same machine. But why we need to manage the local repository in the same machine is, yes, so this is going to helpful sharing the resources between the modules. Yes, I have this module A, module B, module C, all these modules related that the build activities I'm doing on the same machine, but I need to share it module A related the resource to that module C. At the module C, I need to share it to the module B. So if you have the dependencies like that, then how do we distribute that artifact? That means one module related artifact to the other modules which are running on the same build server machine is, we need to keep this WAR file into that local repository. But a local repository is nothing but that is also one of the directory. But what is that directory of this local repository is that user home directory, like let me write it that in that user home directory we have this .m2 folder. In that m2 folder the repository is the file, repository is the directory. In this directory, if I am able to share this WAR file and if I am able to copy to this location, then from this location other modules they can access it. So this also I will show about it like practically. So what about this the local repository, how do you distribute that application once it is available in that the project target folder? Project target folder is only that particular the project module. But if you'd like, whatever that's the artifact you have generated, you need to share it to that other modules which you have this on the same machine. But how do we distribute it is, we don't need to copy this directly to that other modules. What you can do this is, you can just copy this one to that user home directory.m2 repository. This one we call it as in our Maven terminology as local repository. Yeah, if I'm able to save this var file to this location, then other modules, they can easily access about to this module. Yeah, so once artifacts ready, artifact distribution is another important thing. But one of the distribution which you are expecting is, in the same machine, other modules are going to have the dependency of this module. But other modules, how to share it, the current distribution is, you need to copy this generated artifact into that user home.m2 repository. This is one kind of the requirement. Second kind of this requirement is artifact distribution. Suppose I'm the as a web developer, website I'm implementing, and you are implementing on the backend side. In your system, you are implementing about your functionality. In my system, I'm implementing that my functionality. But we are working thus for the same module. But backend you are working, on front end layer I am working that. But once that's about your backend layer is ready, you need to distribute about your application to me. Otherwise, I cannot test it the complete functional of that web layer with the backend layer, because backend layer you are implementing in your system that is available, but front end layer I'm implementing in my system that is available. But whenever the final integration is required, my web layer is having the dependence on about your backend layer. But how do we distribute that? Okay, you are working in your system, I am working in my system. But how do we distribute that? The my artifact to you or about your artifact to you as is. So the next type of the distribution these artifacts is, that is remote repository. The first one we are saying is local repository. Local repository is within the machine. Within the machine, multiple modules are there. One module which has a dependence on another module. That means you need to distribute that one artifact with a one artifact of this module to this another module. But how do you distribute it is, just store this artifact into that local repository location. But what is the local repository location in the Maven is, that is user home directory.m2 repository. But what about this remote repository? So where is that? The remote repository is nothing but that is about our artifact repositories which we need to use it. Artifact repo servers which we need to use it. But what are the artifact repository servers are available is Nexus. Nexus, or like we have different tools in the market. So that's what we are planning, or what we are expecting is here, integrate the Maven with remote repository to upload that or to distribute. So what we need to do is, suppose you are working on that, you need to upload about your artifact to that remote repository, that is whatever it is using in the infra. Then from that remote repository, I need to download it to my module requirement point of view. Yes, integrating the Maven with a remote repository is another type of the distribution which you are expecting. Yes, so once artifacts are ready, artifacts which will be placed in that project home directory target folder, and this with the var file name. But this var file, sometimes it is required to distribute to other modules which are having on the same machine. But other modules which are running on the same machine, how do we distribute it is, that's we call it as local repository. But where that local repository location is, that is user home directory. That means what are the current user which you are using to run the Maven. In that user home directory .m2 folder, in that m2 folder repository is there, you need to distribute that application to this location. And the second approach what we have this is, sometimes what are the artifact which has been generated, this artifact is required to upload to that remote repository for other project purpose, or for the other teams who are working on the same project point of view. We need to distribute that artifacts to those other teams. But how do we use the Maven to distribute that application to other teams is, so that's we can uploaded to the remote repository. So the remote repository is like about our Nexus servers, or like some artifact repository servers which we can use it. And but what we need to have this is Maven has to be integrated with that remote repository, and using the Maven we can control uploading artifact to the remote repository. Yeah, so there are all the activities which we are expecting from the Maven point of view. Yes, that is fifth phase is in this artifact distribution. If we just conclude it, the fifth phase which we are expecting is this is how to distribute that application to local repository using the Maven whenever it is required to share it the artifact to other modules which are running on the same machine. And the sixth phase which we are expecting is a remote repository. That means once artifact is ready, how do we distribute that application to remote servers? Yes, if you just observe that all these phases, once the source classes are available, source classes has to be compiled. Then test classes, if you have anything of that project, the test classes has to be compiled. Then test cases, whatever we have, all the test cases required to be executed. And executed result report, it is storing into that target surefire reports directory. In that directory, it is saving this all these report in XML file format. Then once this all are good, then we are expecting converting into this the archive file format on the basis of the project requirement, either WAR file or the jar file or the ER file. So that's WAR file which you can use it these options. I mean, there is the packaging model. What it is helping about it is creating artifact, but artifact where it is storing is in the target folder itself. That means this artifact you can use it only in this project level. But once artifacts are ready, sometimes you need to distribute to other modules, sometimes you need to distribute to other development teams or other project point of view. But how do we distribute to the other modules, or how do we distribute to the other teams who are working in the same project? That's point of view. Once this artifact is ready, which we can call that as artifact distribution. But artifact distribution, what are the approaches which are expecting is, one is local repository. That means uploading this artifact to that local repository. But where that local repository is, that is on the same system. That means wherever this project is running in the same system distribution. But how you can distribute this in the same system for other modules is like user home directory .m2 folder repository directory. So this local repository for other modules purpose. But we have the sometimes requirements was whatever the artifact which are generating distribute to remote repository as well as. But how do we distribute that artifact to that other repositories is, that's we say that remote repository. But remote repository, how to distribute it is, here we have some integration steps which we need to perform, integrating the Maven with the remote repository. Yeah, so there are like activities which are expecting. Once the source code is ready, the source code, how do we perform that compilation, test case execution, and packaging? And packaged one, how do we distribute to the same system, or packaged artifact, how do we distribute to remote repositories of the remote system, I mean remote users. So that's point of view like remote repositories. Yeah, so there are like points which we have, and as these points are the phases to manage it, we have the different build commands from the Maven.